Hello, I'm Marilyn Taylor. I'm an architect, urban designer, professor, and dean of the School of Design at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm very pleased to join you today to discuss transportation and the key role it plays in designing cities. Cities defined by balanced transportation, walking, biking, driving, taking the ferry, bus, or train, flying, offer efficient connections, effective use of scarce resources, lower carbon emissions, and higher quality of life for ourselves and our future generations. Sometimes transportation provides us with extraordinary contrasts in scales, as here in Philadelphia. The Ben Franklin Bridge, linking Philadelphia and Camden, New Jersey, towers over a wonderful one-acre park at its base, a reclamation of the shipping pier and warehouse, now repurposed as Ray Street Park. Transportation is a key way in which we come to know our cities, meet our neighbors, and interact in ways both planned and spontaneous. New York City's High Line, a linear park created along the slithering line of an elevated industrial railroad built in the early 20th century to distribute goods from shipping piers and warehouses, shows us how transportation can become a repurposed part of our urban culture. And in some cities, transportation has become the key not only to mobility, but also to the inclusion and lessening of inequality among urban residents, including those of lower income neighborhoods and informal settlements. The improbable escalators of Medellin, Colombia, a surgical and strategic investment by the city and state, link residents of the barrios to opportunities for work and education, while also increasing a sense of shared public space and creating new investments in community and neighborhood. The escalators of Medellin are a brilliant example of the reasons to believe in the power of transportation to shape not just urban form, but also the quality and equity of urban life, and to inform the complicated process of designing cities. Seen through these examples, transportation within cities and among cities is a powerful strategic investment to drive change toward greater economic success, while failing transportation that produces congestion and disconnection is an indicator of economic and social distress. How can we employ investment in transportation to realize the potential of cities? Here are 5 principles to guide our thinking. Principle 1. Routes of transportation shape urban form. They also shape patterns of land use, whether or not there is zoning. The interrelationship of movement and urban form began long ago, in the walking paths of early cities, in the water routes from farms to markets, and in the overland routes from home to workplace, from home to church, to education, to healthcare, to recreation, to family and friends, to entertainment. To accomplish trade and to create markets, linkages between country and city between city and city became important. And today, global connections have become essential to networks of transportation linkages that cities must possess in order to establish their own distinctive strategic economic advantages and to maintain and build their economic viability. Canary Wharf, London, was a city-building strategy to make London a global player in trading and capital services. It nearly failed because of the lack of transportation. Today, it survives and thrives as a 21st century center because of the investment in transportation that makes it accessible to a workforce of over 2.5 million people within 45 minutes travel time. The city of Philadelphia proposes to reclaim underutilized freight lines, both as public recreation corridors and as infill transit services that will broaden transportation access from the working class and lower income neighborhoods of the city. Recapturing existing and abandoned corridors may be key to the ability to provide connectivity as our cities grow and flourish. Principle 2, the frequency, speed, and reliability of intercity transportation services create strategic competitive advantage for cities in the global economy. In the 19th and 20th centuries, investment in transportation for trade and economic advantage became essential to the success of cities. We see this in the canal to the port, the Erie Canal, which saved travel time to the Port of New York and sealed its future as a world city for trade and finance. We see this in the investments of New Orleans as a port, taking advantage of the lower cost of barges, bringing the produce and goods of the American Midwest down along the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. And we see this opportunity renewed and redefined in the late 20th century in Southern California, where a network of freight railroad lines carries goods from the Port of Long Beach to and through the intense markets of Los Angeles and Southern California. Airports are the best 21st century example of the importance of intercity linkages for travel and trade, as well as for the exchange of ideas. The Hong Kong International Airport, constructed away from central Hong Kong and Kowloon as the final investment of the British when they prepared to depart from Hong Kong, exemplifies strategic investment in transportation. By building a whole new world-class airport, accessible to the Pearl River Delta region, Hong Kong buttressed its international prominence as a port, putting virtually all of Asia, including more than 26 million people, within a 5-hour travel radius. Principle 3, the interaction among means of transportation creates strategic location for cities and for sites within cities. The introduction of high-speed rail in America's Northeast megaregion will emulate the success of Japan, the European Union, and now Asia in linking skilled workforces and innovative minds by achieving reduced travel times from city to city. In this proposal from a team at Penn Design, the major cities of America's Northeast will be linked within 2 hours of travel time or less, promoting idea exchange. Principle 4, the location of stations and points of transfer creates value, particularly if we deploy design strategies that capitalize on the opportunities to connect patterns of travel with everyday activities and their expression in the public realm. Over the past 2 decades or so, city planners and designers have been pairing private and public investors to combine their resources in a land use strategy called transit-oriented development. It comes in many forms, but most begin with the concept of the quarter-mile and half-mile radius from the station itself as an area where a welcoming public realm, small shops and restaurants, and parks and works of art encourage people to walk rather than to ride in private personal vehicles from place to place. Increasingly, areas of transit-oriented development have become more inclusive, involving a broader set of activities, mixed uses, and mixed income households. Newark, New Jersey, in the shadow of New York City as well as its own race issues, under its activist mayor, Cory Booker, is investing in its universities and its qualities as a place to live and work. 2 station development areas, Broad Street Station to the north and Newark Penn Station to the south, have each been planned as mixed-use and mixed-income places, complementing the historic city center and the new Performing Arts Center that bring life to the city of Newark. The 23 municipalities of the Denver, Colorado metro area each voted an incremental tax for the planning, design, and construction of a region-serving network of transportation improvements. They all come together in plan in a new mixed-use neighborhood at the historic Union Station, serving the revitalized and dynamic city center. Intercity rail, ski train service, regional buses, light rail transit, and biking trails all come together at this site. Principle 5, the design of transportation shapes the nature of our shared human experiences. The way we use transportation shapes our shared public realm. One of the qualities I like most about public transportation is that when we are people in shared space, rather than individuals sheltered in a personal vacuum, we interact. The planning and design of stations and transit stops, of spaces of movement and spaces of waiting, can provide opportunities in which individuals and groups come together and build a sense of community through shared experience. One of Philadelphia's newest and most successful open spaces is a very small one, the Porch at 30th Street Station, which is Philadelphia's major intercity and commuter rail station. Designed, built, and operated by the University City District, a long, skinny traffic island has been reclaimed for pedestrian community use, extending the identity and activity of Philadelphia's busiest regional and intercity train terminal. Demographics matter, perhaps more than we know. The changes in our population profiles, the affinity of younger people for the opportunities that cities offer all around the world, remind us that Peter Drucker was right. Demographics is the single most important factor that nobody pays attention to. Transportation investment, if it is to shape cities in positive directions for all urban citizens, must pay close attention to changing demographics. Now, a few thoughts on the history of transportation economics and city design. Too often we think of transportation simply as the way we get from one place to another, and too frequently, in my opinion, by our habit of using the car. But when we look back over history, we see instead that transportation developed for many other reasons. Human settlements developed to provide safety and a stable food supply to those living in and around them. The first transportation routes were footpaths and then cartways within and among those settlements, bringing people together for their self-defense, as well as for the sharing of food and other essential resources. The sharing of food became the wonderful, vibrant markets that we still rely on today, where goods of all kinds are bought, sold, and exchanged. Markets between and among cities began to thrive, necessitating the use of means of travel beyond those available to the individual. America passed quickly from the area of colonial turnpikes to the age of canals. The Erie Canal, built in the 1820s and operated for only a few years, brought salt and other goods from upstate to the port of New York City, increasing its size and world presence and its future as a global city. In just a few decades, canals gave way to railroads, unleashing a great transcontinental impulse to extend commerce and expand the network of settlement for opportunity and fortune. Then came the highways and freeways, which over a half-century have transformed and deformed the American landscape as our grandparents knew it, into an expanding, seemingly endless sprawl of urban and suburban development. Here's an image now familiar to us, our world from space, illuminated by the networks of cities that create our economic future. This evolution has brought us to a transformational moment, to a global market of rapid flow of goods and people, of efficient global supply chains, of networks of small firms competing with corporate giants, and of high-speed idea exchange. This is the world our transportation designs and investments must now serve. Moving ahead. To move forward with successful city design, we must understand that transportation is not an end in itself. It is a means to fulfilling our fundamental needs and goals as individuals, cultures, vital economies, and resilient societies. I'd like to wrap up this session by sharing 5 exciting examples of how today's cities are being shaped by transportation. First, Hong Kong. Hong Kong International Airport serves global markets and creates strategic competitive advantage. Sky City takes advantage of its integral location within the airport and its multiple modes of regional access to create a place of trade and identity for the airport, HKIA. The second example is in America's Northeast megaregion. High-speed rail serves regional and national markets in advancing the potential for innovation and idea exchange. The proposal for high-speed rail in America's Northeast corridor will provide capacity for population growth to 70 million and will support a tripling of the region's economy by the mid-21st century. The third example, interwoven regional transit systems link resources, reduce energy use and carbon emissions, and provide opportunities for highly valuable placemaking. Old industrial lands become a new anchor district, melding innovative workplaces and a convenient style of living. In a dense urban district, served by all modes of access, including bikes and walking, with public facilities and parks complemented by revenue-generating private investment in a distinctive new center serving the entire Denver region. Example 4. Strategic plans that integrates land use planning, transportation networks, and a commitment to resilience increase carrying capacity in our cities and allow them to respond successfully to stress, including extreme weather and climate change. Singapore, with its successful congestion pricing, transit construction, airport investment, emphasis on public space, and planning for resilience, is a city-state that is planning long-term for the future of the city, the nation, and its residents. And finally, example 5. The High Line in New York City is an integrated, interdisciplinary transportation system that provides an exhilarating and ennobling experience and creates identity and places of value. I believe deeply in the power of transportation to shape the form, function, and quality of life in cities. I've argued that wise and continuing investment in transportation is essential to the creation and continuing vitality of great urban centers. I've shown you some examples of the best transportation investments that not only move us from place to place, but shape the way we live and change our impacts, all too devastating on the scarce resources of our planet. These investments are both strategic and local. Transportation is important to our success in integrating natural and man-made ecologies. It is an interdisciplinary field that needs all of us as designers, policymakers, and stakeholders. It's important to leave only to others. We must, once again, regain a public will to invest in transportation as the catalyst for the many positive ways we interact, rather than using up the capacity of the transportation infrastructure our predecessors gave us. Thank you, and I hope you learn more about it. Next time, please join us for a presentation by Professor Stefanel, who will be discussing managing water in scarcity and flooding.